What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us for episode 4 of Roster Locked, a best ball show hosted on the RotoViz live stream and RotoViz YouTube channel. My name is Zachary Kruger. I'll be your host. You can find me on Twitter at ZK_FFB. And joining me tonight is Steven Perkins of IDP Guys. You can find him on Twitter at FlavorizeThis, which is a beautiful Twitter handle, I must say. I love seeing that handle pop up. It just is it's a little classy. I like it. And Steve and I are going to be getting into another Best Ball Mania 2 tournament as I continue my month-long Underdog fantasy stream here on the show. For those of you who do not play on Underdog, or if you're looking to get into it, you can go to the show description on the YouTube channel. I provided a link. You can right now get a $25 bonus with your first deposit of a minimum of $10 if you use my promo code Krug, which is just my Krugs, which is just my last name. Shortened up a bit, KRUEGS. It's right there in the show description for you guys can check it out. But Steven, thanks for joining me. Happy to have you on. We've talked a lot in the Twitter streets, and now we're taking it live for everyone else to see. How's it going?
It's going great, man. Thanks for the invite. We're gonna silver bullet this thing. It's $1 million right here. I hope everybody's watching.
Yeah, I talked to Steven before the show. We were talking backstage, and I told him that I've got my Colorado Rockies gear on after I visited out there the other week. You see, he's rocking. I believe is that the Rams?
This is a Rockies hat. It's just a St. Patrick's Day Rockies hat.
Okay, yeah, that's a beautiful theme. And I know they got like the camo and stuff like that going around too. So MLB is always switching up their hats. But before we get into the draft, because we know that Underdog kind of moves very quickly, and we obviously want to get a little bit of conversation in regarding best ball strategy, what we're kind of doing in our tournaments right now, which is in fact what the Best Ball Mania 2 is. It's a large tournament format with 156,000 entrants. Steven has tackled, I believe he said 10 of these already, so he's certainly not a stranger to it. I'm only up to 3, so he can probably teach me a thing or two of these next couple of minutes. Steven posted a thread. I'm just going to take a quick read at it here, and then we'll kind of get into it a little bit. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it just says, after last week's NFL schedule announcement, I've been looking to attack Underdog Fantasy Best Ball Mania 2 $1 million tournaments, mostly using some DFS strategies, which is key in this case. We're going to get into that. He's got a few things that he's unpacking here. He went ahead and covered some players to fade. I'll give you the top 6 here in the first thread. He's got Dalvin Cook as a fade, along with Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Will Fuller, which I think a lot of people who are listening to this might find that particularly bold. But before we get into the fades, why don't we talk a little bit about just the concept that, brought this to light with the idea of having to be mindful of a tournament versus what I think most are now referring to as a cash game format of Underdog, where it's just like a 12-team league versus going up against 156,000. Like, why are we talking about this as a way to possibly build teams in this tournament style format?
Hey, if you look at the teams that are posted by the top best ball guys like James, the Eagles, and the different guys, I mean, a lot of these builds are looking a lot alike. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to differentiate our roster from everybody else. And so we're using a couple DFS tricks. And the one that I mentioned in the thread is, you're narrowing your pool. You're narrowing your ownership pool. And what you're trying to get is you're trying to get higher exposure on your guys. And the guys in this case that have the best strength of schedule, SOS, who can give you the best return. So really it's about getting that higher percentage on the guys that are going to give you the higher return. And that way, when those guys hit, instead of getting one team into the tournament, you're getting 2 teams in the tournament, 3 teams in the tournament. You're getting more in, and that's giving you more chances for that $1 million, which is what everybody wants. I mean, we're not playing for, an extra $10. We're playing for the $1 million. So that's the goal.
Exactly. No, I'm completely with you on that. We're playing for life-changing money here. Not 10. I can go find $10 on the street. I can't find $1 million anywhere except for in the Best Ball Mania tournament over at Underdog, which is why we're looking at differentiating our lineups a bit. I think one thing that is interesting when you talk about this, particularly with your list, like most people are talking about fading the players kind of later on in the draft, maybe like a Marquez Valdez-Scantling or something where it's like, oh, I could maybe see a lot of people having this guy because he's a late round flyer. He was okay this past season. But you're actually talking about fading some guys pretty early. I mean, on your first list, you've got 3 guys before the top 6 and Cook, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, and Alvin Kamara, which, it's definitely interesting. Do you want to touch on that a little bit? Because you come storming right out the gates with it, which I like because I think that it's kind of a good way to think about things.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about Henry because for me, like Henry's a fade because of just usage alone. And then if you're, he's gotten I think 350 touches a couple of years ago. He's almost 400 last year. And then you add, the strength of schedule, which is really detrimental to him. It's one of the bottom 5 for week 1 through 17, and then one of the bottom 5 for 15 through 17. So I don't know. I'm open to Henry, but for me, I think he's just a fade. I don't know what you think about him. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I like Derrick Henry because of all of the pass volume that we've seen. And by pass I mean PAST, not PASS as in receiving, because we know he's not getting that. But the pass volume, as in last year and the year before, there's a lot of reasons to definitely like him because you can kind of assume that's going to happen again this year. But when you factor in, like you said, the strength of schedule, and I haven't looked at this, so I'm taking your word off of it. We've had enough conversations. I know you're a smart guy, so I'm trusting you on this here. And I think that if you're going to factor in the strength of schedule, and then also just talk about how the volume has been so abnormally high, I think you can build in a case where you can also see just a regression in touches. One thing that I think happened last year that maybe we didn't expect to see based on their 2020 NFL draft was when they selected Darrington Evans last season. Some people were kind of high on Evans. They thought that they could see possibly a third down back role for him. And then if I'm not mistaken, I think he kind of like got injured early on, and then they didn't really have I don't even know who their RB3 was on the roster last year, honestly. He clearly didn't do enough to matter, but Darrington Evans was supposed to kind of fill that Deion Lewis role from the previous year, and then that didn't happen, and all of a sudden Henry's just getting all these touches. You had commented the other day about me being on Darrington Evans, and you asked what the secret is to that, and I have no inside knowledge. Someone actually DM'd me and asked me what the inside knowledge. I was like, man, I don't know anything, but I know that he profiled well coming out of college. I know that they didn't do anything to replace him in the draft, and there is definitely a path for that PPR upside in a third down role, mainly because that we know that's not Derrick Henry. So Darrington Evans, you can get him in the 17th or 18th round of drafts. I definitely like him for that, and I think that if you combine what I believe could happen plus what Steven is saying could happen, that kind of was where you could even begin to factor in the possibility of Henry losing touches. Like, he could lose some to Darrington Evans, and I think if Henry goes down, that Evans could just be potential league winner. Whether you like that phrase or not, I'm not sure. I still use it. I'm old school. I know some people are trying to like move off to like more trendy phrases, I guess, but
like $1 million winner.
Yeah. Darrington Evans, $1 million winner.
$1 million winner.
That's what he'll be called after this season. So while we were sitting here talking, I went ahead and got us into an underdog draft. I joked with you backstage that hopefully we aren't the 12th out of 12 team to do it, and you'd be surprised to know, but we were either the 11th or 12th team in the lobby. So we're about to fire this up in the next 40 seconds here. Is there anything you want to add before we get this thing as I pull my screen up?
No. I was just thinking it's funny that you mentioned Evans, because if you're looking at the teams for strength of schedule for RBs that catch passes, the Titans are right up there. And so it's kind of the dichotomy of, Henry's not there with the rushing. The ground game is going to be detrimental as far as strength of schedule, but their RB passing, and looking at that Titans team, I mean, they're going to have a really condensed, like who's going to get targets? Like 3 or 4 guys are going to get targets. And so Evans, I think, is going to be one of those guys. He's going to be worth it. His ADP is way low right now. It's too low. And so definitely $1 million winner Evans. I mean, he's got that potential for sure.
I hadn't even thought about that, factoring in the targets that he could receive because of the underwhelming receiving core there. And I mean, I know everyone likes Anthony Ferguson a lot, and I certainly, I don't mind him either, but I hadn't even considered that there could easily be a path for him to receive targets just simply because we don't know how good these wide receivers are. So real quick, we're drafting out of the 107. Is there a particular angle you've been taking to drafting in this range? You know that RotoViz is 0 RB, but we're going to have about 30 seconds here to decide on this pick.
Man, I mean, this one's kind of a freebie for me, but I as long as it's not like Kamara or Henry or Cook or any of those guys that I like to fade, I usually go Kels or Taylor, but I'm open to whatever because I do think it's that first round's kind of a free pick.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Jonathan Taylor's someone I like. Ezekiel Elliott, I've been fading. I got plenty of Tyreek Hill. If you would like to go like something like Elliott, I'd be kind of interested in that.
I wouldn't want to go Elliott. No, he's actually a fade for me too. Taylor's great, or Hill. Want to start off like that? That's awesome.
Okay, let's go Taylor here real quick. Let's talk Elliott. Elliott was a fade for you. Why is Elliott a fade for you at this spot?
You know what? He last year he was my guy that I was calling the same thing that for Henry. I mean, I think his schedule wasn't coming up, and then his usage was just off the charts. And he did okay last year. He was, I think, PPR RB9, but he wasn't a top 3 player. And so, I mean, that's kind of the same boat that we're in with Henry. Henry might end up like a top 12 running back, but he's not going to be a top 5 overall guy. I mean, there's just no way. So, I mean, same thing with Elliott. I think that whole offense I'm fading a little bit, and you know he's going to be part of that. I just don't see them really churning out a ton of points. I mean, he's still going to be good, but he's not going to be top 7 good for sure.
For sure. No, that's a perfectly sound argument. When it comes to starting a draft with a running back here, which we've already obviously done, we got Jonathan Taylor. Where are you at on the ever growing in popularity, which is probably a horribly phrased sentence, but where are you at in the 4 RB builds with the hyper fragile approach to winning these tournaments? Are you buying that up? Are you considering going 5? Will you maybe go wide receivers later on and do a more solid RB build off the back end, or how are you tackling that real quick?
You know, I've done a couple 5s, but I know last week James was talking about, you know, he doesn't really pay attention to it, and I'm kind of the same way. I'm letting it build, and you know, I'm used to the 6 RBs, but if it works out 5 and it's 5 premium guys or 4 premium guys, then that's great. But it's a little risky for me. Like, I'm not loving the 4 RB builds.
Sure. No, I tend to wonder about that as well, because I think there's a lot of uncertainty. Even if you start off with 2, like, you really kind of have to nail those last 2 later on in the draft, which is obviously the premise behind it. I just don't know that I completely have, enough faith to make that happen. So we're looking right now at the next picks. We got Najee Harris, DeAndre Hopkins, Antonio Gibson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or we could do something like an elite tight end with George Kittle.
You know, I love Harris because I think he's going to be a top guy, especially he's got that week 15 through 17 schedule that we like. And Hopkins has got one of the better 1 through 17 schedules. Like, him and Murray are going to be monsters together this year. So either one of those guys I'm great with.
Cool. I'm going to go with Najee Harris. I have not taken a lot of him, and this just kind of goes opposite of what I've been doing more recently. I think I actually just started a Jonathan Taylor and Najee Harris draft the other day too. So not too long ago that I did one, but I can also tell you it's not very common for me. So we're going to be running under the 3rd round here. Again, we're picking out of the 7th slot. So the 307 will be up next for us. We already got a couple of the the key players and wide receiver coming off the board, and I think this is now where I probably consider taking a guy like Darren Waller if I'm looking for that elite tight end build, kind of to give me that comfort and knowing that I don't have to chase the position for a good while after that. Are you into doing the elite tight ends, or are you?
I'm all about it. Whoever falls, if Kittle I would rather go Waller than Kittle, but if one of those guys falls, then definitely that would be amazing.
Yeah. Now, all right, let's say that we lose both of those guys. What's the receiver that you're liking in this range? Let me pull them up here so we can actually see the full list of receivers here, because essentially we're going to be looking at these guys if they fall. I'm a big fan of Michael Thomas. I can go on for days about how I think he's just kind of going undervalued right now. Like, we were drafting him in the 1st round a few years ago. For him to fall to the 3rd, I just think is silly. I have no concerns about who his quarterback is, going forward. And now he just was like a screaming value to me. Is there a wide receiver you're chasing in this range?
You know, I also am a big Thomas guy. His SOS is not great, but I could definitely deal with him. I mean, Keenan Allen is somebody that I think has really great chemistry with Herbert, and they can rack up the points. Like, any of those guys that are left are amazing. I'm a big Scary Terry guy. I mean, it looks like somebody good's going to come to us. So any of those guys right there, I mean, I don't think any of those guys are bad in any way.
Yeah, no, for sure. If we wanted to draft based off of your strength of schedule stuff from earlier on, if we weren't going Michael Thomas, who would be the wide receiver we'd be getting here if he's there for us?
I mean, we passed on Hopkins, but it's Scary Terry's got a really good one. Let's see. It's Cooper. Cooper is not, and Cooper and Lamb are both not on that list. Evans is a fade. Thomas is okay, but Keenan Allen, Ridley, any of those guys are going to produce, But Scary Terry is the highest on that list, but we don't have to reach for him there. I'm sure he can loop back around.
Yeah, he should definitely fall. I mean, someone would have to literally chase him right now at the point for where we could get him. Real quick, do we have our tight ends if we wanted one? It looks like we do not. So we're going to be getting a wide receiver here. I was fine with Keenan Allen. We just lost him. So I'm completely fine with Terry McLaurin. Obviously, another great strategy when it comes to tackling these is not just having unique lineups, but also stacking a little bit. And you're not going to get a much cheaper stack when it comes to getting a quarterback than you are Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I'm ready to lock in Terry McLaurin if you are, and then we can kind of tackle that next pick afterwards.
Yeah, that works.
All right, let's do it. So we have already got through the first 3 rounds. We have Jonathan Taylor for our 101, out of the 107 slot. We got Najee Harris coming back, and then we got Terry McLaurin at our 3rd round pick. And Terry McLaurin is just one of those guys who, if you want to talk about a wide receiver, like we tend to praise these wide receivers often in the league for fantasy when it comes to wide receiver who has produced with horrible quarterback play. Allen Robinson has built a career off of it. Once upon a time, Andre Johnson was doing it years ago with the Texans. He just never had great quarterback play. And now Terry McLaurin's kind of done that, where he's just in 2 years, he's played with more quarterbacks than some veterans who have 10 years in the league have played with. So I can't begin to name them all, but McLaurin, if he can produce with what he has so far, I think that he is a guy who's just going to get one DGAF ball after another from Ryan Fitzpatrick. Fitz has nothing to lose. He's just out there to ball. Love watching him play. Love what he does for fantasy. I think McLaurin definitely is going to be in good position to produce for us in this spot. Where do we want to start looking at then for our 4th round pick? Because these things, they do move fast.
Yeah. Man. As far as wide receivers, the SOS kind of lends to the Raiders. It lends to, if we want to go just weeks 15 to 17, the Giants are right there. 49ers, Cardinals. So any of those teams, if Ayuk's there, that he might be somebody. We might want to look at QB. This is something that would work. We would go really well with Murray, even though we don't have Murray. Murray, I think, is going to be one of those top guys. Murray and Lamar Jackson look like 2 of the guys that have really great strength of schedules. That's going to really serve them well over the whole year. Murray especially has got an incredible 15 to 17 schedule.
Yeah, no, I think you just talk about too that NFC West is just kind of built for shootouts more or less. There could be a lot of high scoring games in there. So even just considering the divisional schedule. So we're on the clock. I am not opposed to taking a quarterback here. I usually don't take quarterbacks nearly this early, but you got to get different in a tournament. You mentioned the Raiders. The only guy who I liked was Josh Jacobs, or I consider a wide receiver, but I'm fine with Murray if that's the way we want to go. Let's
do Murray and we'll see how it works out.
Okay, let's get him right here. He has an ADP of 45. So we did I just pick Josh Allen? I just picked Josh Allen.
That's all right. We'll still get it.
That's why we do these live, so that way then we can have the shock factor if we grab the wrong thing. So we're big on Josh Allen now. I hope you liked him too. I hope his schedule wasn't too bad. I could have sworn I had Murray selected, but I guess I was just underneath of him. So damn it. So we'll make it work. If you want to talk about stacking, though, we still have opportunities to stack Josh Allen, even with some really good wide receivers later on, which we're going to need, obviously, with our running backs going this early. I see Doug had commented in the chat here just with the classic Homer Simpson dough. I will own that one. That was completely my fault, so my bad. But you wouldn't be saying that if you remember what Josh Allen did last year, right? He was obviously a stud. So.
If we're talking SOS, the Bills running backs have one of the worst SOSs, and so I think that plays up to Allen, and Allen being the vulture guy again. So he doesn't have they gotta have a middle of the road passing SOS, which is fine, but his value comes in his just punching in 5, 6, 7 touchdowns. So he's never a bad choice. I love Allen.
Yeah, and honestly, you touched on bad running back SOS. What if you also consider the fact that they just might possibly have one of the worst running back rooms in the league? That might not be the craziest thing to suggest either, which could just lead way to more Allen passing and running. So I'm actually more on the Josh Allen pick, I think, than I initially was when I had that goof. It was more out of embarrassment than it was not liking Josh Allen.
That's all good. These are the things that add up to $1 million. The accidentals sometimes help.
Yeah, imagine when we look back on it, when we're on a family vacation or something in the Caribbean because we just won $1 million. We just treat our families good. Like when Josh Allen gets us there, we're gonna look back on this moment and just be like,
yeah, we planned it totally 100%.
The fantasy gods directed our paths.
Yeah, that's funny.
So we'll be fine. We'll make do. I think we should probably start talking wide receiver though now, unless there was a running back. We don't need quarterback for a while, so let's just get our running backs, our wide receivers, and our tight ends up here. I mean, there's a lot of guys on here who I'm kind of fine with right now. I don't mind Tyler Lockett, even though he gave a lot of dud weeks despite his big weeks last season. I don't mind him. I don't think it'll be quite that bad. We just lost Deontay Johnson, who I like. Who's standing out to you right now in this range?
As far as SOS goes, Galladay's the guy. Ayuk's there. He just popped up. One of those two guys is great. I think Javonte Williams, that's also a nice SOS pick. Mm-hmm. If you think that he's going to be the guy instead of Gordon, I think eventually by the end of the season, he will be that guy. And then there's also Gaskin. I don't know if Gaskin's still around, but Gaskin is a huge SOS. I mean, SOS rushing, SOS red zone. I mean, it all points to Gaskin. So Gaskin is going to be a huge player. Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna go Galladay because we're timing out, and I like what you said there, and I also don't have a lot of Galladay, so I think that would be a fun one to kind of keep track of here. Javonte Williams is an interesting player, and I think mainly because this is kind of where, obviously, I don't think anyone was quite expecting him to go to Denver, especially after they just cut bait with Phillip Lindsay. Like you'd think maybe they thought they were good at running back, and then they went and did this, but. Now I do question, is Javonte Williams one of those guys where now you're fading him because you expect that Melvin Gordon will probably still be on the roster, and Gordon is now coming in at more of the value in terms of ADP. Are you on Gordon at all?
I'm not. Gordon kind of pulled something the last game of the season where he was going for 1,000 yards, and he ran inbounds instead of out of bounds, and he actually cost the Broncos that game. And so that he did it 3 times, and so that.
Wow,
that it does shows a selfish player, and I think that's what the Broncos were looking at with Javonte Williams. They're looking at somebody to replace him. Plus, he had a DUI that mysteriously got dropped, and so it's just, I don't think they like Gordon. He's a fumbler too, and so I think eventually Javonte Williams is going to be that guy. It's going to be this year, and they have the SOS. The SOS is extremely generous to them. It's for pass catching backs and rushing. And so I think that he's going to be a stud by the end of the season. And so by 15, 17, that he could be a guy that puts you over the top in a tournament.
Yeah. No, I was actually hoping he'd make it back to the next pick, which did not happen. One guy who's falling a little bit right now, just based off of his ADP, and I don't want to sound like a lunatic because it's probably not the right move, but Kyle Pitts is dropping a little bit if we wanted to get a tight end. I'm also not against Chase Edmonds, who just went. We're on the clock now. I'm going to put Cortland Sutton in here unless we see another player who we really like.
I like Pitts. Let's do Pitts.
Let's do Pitts. All right. And the good news with Pitts too, which is no secret by now, but he actually already inducted in the Hall of Fame. So we can say that we have a gold jacket guy on the roster, someone who's going to be ready to take it to the league once he finally gets in there. And I don't even think he really has to do much, actually. It seems like he's already kind of been inducted, and the bust has been carved. But let's go Pitts there. And real quick, I'm going to just go over the team, and then we can kind of figure out what we do with this next pick. We got quarterback Josh Allen, who was an accident but going to win us the Millie. And then we went Jonathan Taylor and Najee Harris out the gate. Terry McLaurin and Kenny Galladay, we're going NFC East-style wide receivers early with Kyle Pitts to round this out. I don't think there's any question that we definitely have explosiveness on this team coming out of every position. So I like that a lot. Where do you want to go to next? Because we got some kind of an interesting spot here. We got a couple of popular 0 RB candidates who will be coming up around this range, but we also have 2 solid running backs where we can definitely build up our wide receiver core if we want to.
I like the Jacksonville guys. I like Chark. I like Robinson just because of his red zone, and he's been falling. I don't know if he gets to a point where you want to grab him. But Debo just popped up. I like Sermon. Fuller's like a full fade for me. Okay. He's a contract year, and then the SOS was it's bad for him. So,
okay.
let's see who else we got. I mean, I love Judy. Damian Harris is somebody that I've been targeting a lot because the SOS on the New England running backs and New England red zone is high. So he's been somebody I've been getting a lot recently.
Yeah, Damian Harris is someone who I've drafted a good bit too, and I think that he kind of sets up well where as long as he's healthy, he could be in a position to kind of smash either way, regardless of who's at quarterback, because it's either going to be Cam Newton in the run-heavy offense or it's going to be Mac Jones, and they're probably going to ease him along to get him touches early on where they're still going to rely on the running game to kind of keep things moving and not ask him to do too much as a rookie. I think Damian Harris has probably easy top 24 upside again if he stays healthy, and I could see him kind of being that all-valuable goal line back for New England, which we've seen that be very useful in the past. Plus, he produced well last year when he was healthy. 137 carries, 691 yards. It doesn't add anything in the receiving game, but that's okay. We can get by without that with other players who we have. We have Jonathan Taylor. He's going to catch 50 balls this year, so we're fine there.
Mm-hmm.
Are you more prone to go running back or wide receiver here?
I usually just go for right now. I would go for just like best guy available. And if I thought like Harris could come back to us, which he might, I would probably go Debo next. I mean, there's some guys between people are playing a lot of it by ADP, and so you got to play that ADP back when people are picking. So I feel like we can get somebody in between Harris, and he'll still be there on that pick around.
Yeah. Now, one guy I have to watch out for is who's on the clock right now. He is going zero. This must be a RotoViz guy. He's got no running back so far, so we might want to consider. I mean, he's not. If he doesn't take Harris here, then we're okay. So if it came down to Judy or Harris, who are kind of guys we both talked about, which it does now, where do you want to go here? We'll go with one of these two guys.
Well, let's go Judy. Let's get that wide receiver, and then we'll loop it back. We'll get Harris. I know people are listening, but
yeah. I mean, everyone's out here to snipe you on these drafts. I think they tune in for an easy shot at $1 million, realizing they can just pick your guys off as you mention them. But I do a couple of these in private too, so I'll hopefully be able to make up for the loss one way or another if they're sniping us on here. So I think I'm pretty safe calling Damian Harris as our next pick if he falls to us. If he doesn't, though, we should probably prepare for that. Michael Carter is a running back who I'm okay with taking if we lost Damian Harris. Other wide receivers who I like, you could consider messing around with the Washington stack as we already have McLaurin. We're good on quarterback. We don't need a second quarterback right away. Raheem Mostert, I'm out on him. Michael Gallup is fine, but I'm not crazy about him. I don't mind Jarvis Landry either. Anyone else standing out to you?
No, I know you like Fournette, and they put him on the fade list, but he's actually, their 15 through 17 schedule looks pretty good. So as a year-long thing, I don't like him. But as a last 3 weeks, if we're going like between you and I, we can make it to the playoffs, and then we're just picking players that are going to kill it in the playoffs, then Fournette would be one of those guys. But let's see.
I'll start scrolling a little bit here for you.
Okay.
And Damian Harris is still on the board. We're very close to getting him. And the other teams in front of us, they all have either 3 or 4 running backs. So we might not even have to worry about this here. I think right now we're scrolling too far, getting into the 90 range. But, I mean, I do love Fournette. If he ends up winning it for us, being playoff plenty like he was last year, I'm all about that. Do you like Michael Carter over Fournette, or would you put him behind Fournette?
I'm a big Carter guy just because I think the volume's going to be there, and I think that Perrine's kind of a bum, and so I think that eventually he projects right now to about 150 carries, which is okay. But if he gets some of those Perrine carries, he's going to be closer to 200, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, for me it would be Harris, Carter, and then Fournette. As much as I like Fournette, I just think that where Carter was taken, he has such an easy path to carries. Again, he's coming in under a new regime where all those guys who are left over were not guys who they selected. They have no reason to really be loyal to those guys or treat them as if they're this guy's listening. He just took Damian Harris. So if you're with me on Michael Carter over Lenny, I'm good with that. There's no bye week complex. Let's go with that because I'm making sure it is Michael Carter. Now I just need to watch my clicks. But all right, we got Michael Carter. I'm fine with that. I'm not sure who that person is who they think they are who took him before us, or Damian Harris before us. But that's all right. We'll make that work.
I always like those teams that do that, they'll snipe. Those are the ones that always end up like 9th, 10th, 11th. I never worry about those teams because if they're sniping you on purpose, then they're not even building anything. So I'm not worried about that at all.
Yeah, they got Lamar Jackson.
They
might actually be okay, but we're not going to criticize other teams. Let's keep our eyes on our own plate because we got a few more rounds to go here still. So, I mean, Leonard Fournette, he's not going to make it back to us, but if he did, I'll leave him at the top of the queue. But I think we should probably start looking at wide receivers a little bit closer to where we're peaking for this now 9th round pick. Jalen Waddle is a guy who I kind of like. I'm not sure where you're at on him. I think you just said that Dolphins were on the fade for you for the strength of schedule.
Yeah, I like the red zone. The red zone strength of schedule is good. If we think that Waddle is going to be that guy, if he's going to be the slot, that might come out well for him. Like I think that I would pick Marquise Brown over him, just because the Ravens do have, that strength of schedule, that 1 through 17 strength of schedule. It's the top passing strength of schedule. So I'd pick Marquise Brown over him, but I'm fine with Waddle too. If we're picking between the two, if people are sniping us, one of those two is great.
Yeah, no, I'm not as big on Marquise Brown, but again, I'm fine with going with guys who I wouldn't normally go with because I think this is sometimes a good way to do the exercise. Bring in other people who can kind of sway your opinion, maybe get you on the right side of things. Because if there's one thing that I found out, and for anyone who's listening or checking this out, I think it's very hard sometimes to come off of the guys that you're just so dedicated to taking and you think you're going to be good to go, but really diversifying your portfolio is good. And sometimes if you can't force yourself to do it, you bring on Steven onto a live stream and then he forces you to do it and you may end up all the better for it. So if he wants to talk me into Marquise Brown over Jalen Waddle, we're 2 picks away from being able to get him. I'm happy to do that. I think that's a fine pick, unless we want to chase Fournette, which we don't need to. Would you still stick Fournette at the top, or would you want to go wide receiver?
Either one of those guys is great. I mean, we could wait on Marquise Brown. I think that either one of those guys is great. Actually, who's coming up at QB? Are we missing out on anybody that we should be?
Yeah, good question. This is where I mess up here. All right, we're on the clock now. We could take Marquise Brown. There's a couple guys.
Let's go Marquise Brown from that. Yeah, man.
I'm fine with that. I'm good with that there. All right, cool. So we got Marquise Brown as our wide receiver 4, still sitting on 3 running backs: Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, Michael Carter, Hall of Famer Kyle Pitts at tight end, and then Josh Allen at quarterback. I definitely do love hammering the wide receiver position here, but we definitely probably still need a second quarterback right now. I don't want to. It's one thing to talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick, like you love him and you can't wait to play him. It's another thing to maybe trust him to play the full schedule because he seems to be jinxed with just having quarterbacks replace him, even though we think and we hope that it's not going to be the case in Washington where they have no real quarterback behind them. But we can either take a second quarterback now, which I'm fine with doing, or if we run into gamble on Fitzpatrick being around later, we can do that too.
I'm good with waiting. I'm good with it's going to sound funny. I'm good with Carr and I'm good with Daniel Jones because that week 15 through 17, it's just popping. And so I think that it sounds weird, man. Like we're building a weird team, but this team is really going to rock it come playoff time. Yeah.
And it kind of goes somewhat against conventional wisdom. It depends on who you talk to, I guess. Do you feel strongly 2 quarterback versus 3 quarterback build? I find myself I think having a more balanced approach to it than I maybe originally thought I would.
Yeah, I like going 3. I know that you've talked about like the RotoViz tools are really cool. And so, you get like an extra %, and that's what best ball is. It's like you're just taking these little edges and edges and edges and edges, and they build up to something. And so that's how you like win leagues, and that's how you win cash leagues, and that's how you're going to win tournament leagues too. And so, if 3 is good with me, Josh Allen's one of those guys who can anchor a team by himself, and then you get a second guy. But 3 is great. And like, I'm good with a balanced approach. I think it's a smart approach, in case guys get injured.
For sure. All right, we're looking here, running back or wide receiver. We're going to be on the clock any second here. If I were to make my pick here, and he's a guy who I like for a 0 RB build, but I also, if I'm going fragile, I think he has a lot of upside, is Gus Edwards.
Yeah. I like us. You know who I like better? I like David Johnson.
David Johnson?
David Johnson's like a 200 carry, 50 catch guy. He's on like the worst team in the league, but he's somebody that can really, I think, put up the numbers. And, because he's a catching running back, like their SOS catching running back wise is the top. And so I just, in a 10th round, that's amazing value for a guy who's probably going to be, he's going to be someone who might be this year's Hines. He's going to be worth a 7 or 8 or 6, just depending on the catches that he makes. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I went ahead and went Johnson while we were going over it. I like that pick. Again, another player who I haven't gotten a lot of. I would say my concern with him, because I'm guessing you probably love him just as much as I do, is Phillip Lindsay. So I do want to believe that Phillip Lindsay can perhaps be the guy at some point in time for Houston, but Lindsay's receiving numbers I don't think are what we would envision often for a back with his speed and his size. The receiving numbers have not been there for Lindsay quite as much as I think I would personally expect to if I'm just kind of on the outside looking in. I look at this guy and I see like a fast, shifty player who's maybe a little undersized. Like those are generally your receiving backs, and Lindsay has not quite been that. So I can see a world where a receiving role for David Johnson very much exists, even with Phillip Lindsay on the roster. I'm fine with taking David Johnson. I think that he could be a solid pick. And if you want to talk about guys who probably aren't going to be popping up on a lot of, possibly more dominant rosters, I think David Johnson could be one of those guys where if he is playing and playing well, perhaps not a lot of strong teams have him because maybe they went more running backs early on and they weren't taking guys like David Johnson here.
Yep. I love Lindsay too, man. It's hard for me to pass on Lindsay, but we could get him later on too, just to stack him. But yeah, he's an explosive player, and if someone was to give him, 15 carries and 5 targets, he's going to break one of those every single game. So, I don't want to roll the dice on David Johnson getting hurt though. But I think that David Johnson could be a top guy if he stays healthy for sure.
I think he was more healthy last season than we tend to remember. I don't remember I didn't have any of David Johnson, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe outside of a concussion, I don't really think he missed a lot of games if I remember correctly.
I'd have to look it up. I know that they were messing around with Chase Edmonds a lot. So and then the big trade.
All right, we're on the clock right now. I don't have anyone up here in the queue yet. So real quick, we got to make a decision here. I'm leaning wide receiver.
Okay.
Here. I'm sorry, I'm messing this up. We got 18 seconds. All right.
Yeah, I like Bateman, Ruggs.
I'm good Davis, with Josh Allen.
Yeah. Let's do it. That would be good.
Let's go that.
We need something like that. Stack it up.
Yeah. All right. Let's prep this queue a little bit because I always find myself rushing. I don't want to do that. So let's talk players who are sitting here as we get ready to come back here. All right. We still need another quarterback. If I wanted to go with, we might need a 3-quarterback build here at this point in time with where we're going right now. We don't have the strongest ones.
I know you're a big Lawrence guy. I like Lawrence too. I think that the SOS at the end kind of plays towards them. So I like that. Let's see. Who else is there?
Lawrence is falling. He shouldn't even be here right now. We're about to hit pick 132, and he's still on the board. Right,
he's around 10 guy. Jeez.
Yeah. So someone wised up and took him. That's pretty good. I like Justin Fields a lot. There's no bye week conflict there. All of the Bears are off the board. There's probably no Bear worth having, and he just went as well. Well, do we want to go quarterback? We could take Ryan Fitzpatrick here, and it wouldn't be the craziest thing. We'd be coming up on pick 144 at the end of this round. His ADP is 150. He might not make it back to us.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with him. I really like Fitzpatrick. I think he's going to be the start of the whole year. It would be nice to have another piece in that offense, but I think we have the best piece. We got Scary Terry, so
yeah, we have the best piece. There's no doubting that. And then we could, even if we wanted to, we could go back and we could get one of the wide receivers a little bit later on. His name is blanking on me right now. The rookie wide receiver who they just drafted this year. Was it Diami Brown? Yes, Diami Brown. Diami Brown is who they drafted. I would not be opposed to taking him later if we wanted to kind of double up the stack. I'm good with Ryan Fitzpatrick, though, if you are. I say let's get our quarterback, too.
Let's do it.
We're gonna ride this thing. Let's go over the team here real quick because I think that we're kind of at that spot. We're on the 12th round. We're near the back end of this thing. Josh Allen and Ryan Fitzpatrick as our two quarterbacks. Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, Michael Carter, David Johnson as our 4 running backs. At wide receiver, we have Scary Terry to pair with Fitzpatrick. We have Kenny Golladay, Jerry Jeudy, Marquise Brown, and then we have a little stack going on with Gabriel Davis, Josh Allen, and we're still sitting on just one tight end at Kyle Pitts. Now is where we need to start really nailing these late round picks to bring this thing home. You want to talk about diversifying and building a unique team that can set itself apart. This is where that's going to happen. Where do we want to go from here?
I mean, we need one more tight end, right? And then
yes,
we probably need at least one more running back, and then a couple wide receivers. But I mean,
yeah.
Let's see.
And no bye week 6 tight ends if possible. I'm gonna turn off quarterback here if I can figure out how to. Here we go. All right, that's what we're looking at right now without the quarterbacks in the way. I do not mind Evan Ingram, even though I know that he's not a very popular pick. He was tops in the league amongst tight ends in targets and yards and receptions. The touchdown was just not there for Ingram. I don't mind him at all. If that's a route that we want to go, there's no bye week conflict there. He would work. We'd even have a little Galladay and Ingram action going on there, which I think is cool. I'm going to put him in the queue, but we don't need to select him. Is there anyone else who you're looking at in this round? I'm going to scroll a little bit to get the marinade on these top guys.
You know, Henry's there. Mims is there. Like, Henry, I think, is more somebody than Jonnu is. And I think that he's going to be a big red zone target. And we were talking about how that red zone SOS is really strong for the Patriots. So I think that would be, you know, we have we didn't get Harris, did we? We didn't get the running back Harris, but that would still be a great play.
Yeah. Did you want to go Hunter Henry here?
Oof. Yeah.
All right, let's go Hunter Henry. He is our second tight end. The Patriots threw a complete wrench into the fantasy world when they got Jonnu Smith, and everyone was like ready to like parade Jonnu through the streets. And then 24 hours later, Hunter Henry all of a sudden showed up, and now there's like all these questions about whether or not you have to imagine there's going to be a way that these two are going to coexist, because I just can't imagine the Patriots signing 2 tight ends and making one of them a roster clog with little to no action. But it's very hard to envision a world where both of them are producing at the level we thought they were before they both joined the Patriots. I think we thought that Jonnu and Henry more or less probably had top 12 tight end upside if they went to 2 different teams. And now I think that you might be looking at them possibly changing blows on a week-to-week basis to see who's going to be the highest scoring tight end for that week. But I don't mind Hunter Henry. Again, I think we're going to be hopefully a little bit padded with Kyle Pitts. I think we got Henry at a good round where we're not reaching too early on that second tight end with the expectation that Pitts is going to often give us those tight end 1 weeks. I mean, I hope he balls out. Like, that'll just be perfect.
I think he's better than Jonnu. Jonnu he takes games off. You know, he'll totally fade away. And I think Henry could be that guy, just that dependable guy that whoever throws to, it's Mac or if it's Cam, I think he's going to be the escape valve, the security blanket for whoever that is. And so I think that's a huge value where we got him. For sure.
Well, we're going to be up in 3 more picks here. Are we looking to go wide receiver then at this point? We probably don't need tight end. I'm going to take tight end off. We got Madison, McKissick, Rashad Penny, Amon-Ra St. Brown, which could be an interesting target hog, Christian Kirk, Emmanuel Sanders, Sterling Shepard, Phillip Lindsay's down there. We got 20 seconds. Anyone standing out to you here?
St. Brown, or, you know, I actually like Tooney too. I think they're going to give him 1 million targets. You know, I know that everybody's down on him, but I think a playmaker is a playmaker, and he's going to have that Giants last 3 games. I know I sound like a broken record, but man, that's no one's going to have that Giant stack. No one's going to have Tooney, you know, besides people that live in New York. Tooney and Galladay And if we get Daniel Jones to be the wide receiver 3, I think like those guys are going to pop. You just need like a group of guys to pop for that week 15, 16, 17. And those guys could lead the way. It sounds crazy, I know, but man, this SOS stuff it works. It works. I mean, my ROI, that's the reason I win most of the time is because I'm following these SOS things.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't do, which is why I'm glad that I didn't know that you're going to be hitting me with SOS stuff on today's show. It was kind of out of left field, but a very much a welcome out of left field thing, because it's not something that you're ever going to catch me talking about on my own. It's not something I've done yet. As I continue to do just fantasy analysis and trying to figure out who I like, when I like, where I like, and why, and all that stuff, I realize that there's still so much ground left to cover, and it just sometimes feels impossible to cover it. I will admit I'm not the best when it comes to rookies pre-draft. It's something that I don't really care much about until after the draft. So to get people on here who can kind of give me a new avenue to explore, something to suggest, like strength of schedule, preseason is something that I think I'll be weighing more going forward. I tend to look at it more in the season when I'm looking for week to week starts and sits. So this has been a nice little masterclass on who to consider and why we should be considering them. So I appreciate you throwing your opinions in there. I'm happy to keep following along. Let's see how far we can take this thing.
Well, it's one of the things that I love about you is when you're posting your teams, I'm like, oh man, I love that guy. I love that guy. I love that guy. And we have such similar teams. And we've been talking since February on Twitter about just our teams. Yep. And it's just like a mutual admiration club, man. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. Definitely finding more people in the best ball community is awesome. Let's talk about strength of schedules for our round 15 pick, because we're going to be up here in 3 picks. We need to get some guys in the queue. I'm going to look at running back and wide receiver. Is there anyone who's standing out to you right here at the top?
No
at the top. No interest in Chuba Hubbard as a RB5?
No, I mean, he would be good if Carolina needs that running back, but I just don't see it. Like, where's our guy that we were talking about earlier? I don't want to say it out loud again.
This is who I was mentioning earlier.
Okay. Okay.
That would be a Washington stack. If you want to talk about unique stacks, we would have a 3-headed monster in Washington and New York.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
What about? All right, I'll say it out loud. What about Evans? Is he still around or no?
We are on the board right now, so we're going to get Darrington Evans. He's going to be there. We can go him. You want to take him?
Let's get Brown first, and then we'll get Evans, because Evans will be there. And now that I said it out loud, he won't be. But
this is how we know who's actually tuning in.
Yeah.
If you're taking Darrington Evans right now, like
30 picks early, then you
right. You're the fish at that point in time, because you shouldn't be taking him in the 15th round. You shouldn't be taking him in the 16th round really either. But we believe enough in his value that we're going to go ahead and do that, and it's fine. Like, ADP be damned sometimes. You just go out there and you get your guys, as long as you can make a logical argument for it. Like Darrington Evans, I think in the RotoViz article I read the other day, I think I more or less called him like the definition of a league winner, which is probably just so bold. And luckily, hopefully, no one should make too much fun of me for it, whether I'm admitting it here or in the article. But yeah, I think Darrington Evans just has a lot of upside. He was somebody who, I mean, if you actually consider what has changed with Darrington Evans, and I don't know his exact ADP from last year to this year, but I'm almost certain that it was higher than 209th overall in Underdog leagues. So nothing has changed as far as his situation goes. The only thing that's changed is he's got another year under his belt. He's got a chance to be in the league, to better learn the system, and hopefully he's healthier than he was last season. If you liked Darrington Evans last year, there was no competition added for him. And again, the wide receiver room has arguably gotten worse in Tennessee. So I don't see a reason why you wouldn't be taking Darrington Evans at his ADP from last year, or even a little bit earlier this year if you want to get him, because I just think that, again, nothing has really changed. And if it's changed, it's probably more for the better than it is the worse. I could be crazy, but I feel pretty confident in that. And he's, at this point in time, he's what I would call more or less a risk-free player, even though it is in the 16th round.
I mean, this is where we saw like players last year like Logan Thomas and Antonio Gibson, and they were around 16, 17 guys. And so Evans is just one of those guys who hasn't really popped yet, and he's going to start popping. By the end of summer, he'll be like around 10, 11 guy. I guarantee that.
Yeah, I think he will be. I think he has the makings of a training camp rumors guy, where people start talking about what they saw in camp. They start talking about his explosiveness. Like, all the stuff that we know is there, all the stuff that we know he can do. I think people have just forgotten about it. And the reality is that he's got the size, he's got the speed to be, a workhorse back. And then on top of that, he has the pass catching upside. So he can definitely do it all, I at least believe, if called upon. So I'm not hesitant about getting him right now. I will keep on pounding the table like Kyle Shanahan for a bad running back, except I'll pound it for a good one. And Darrington Evans. We're not getting Joe Williams here. We're getting a potential league winner here. We have 2 more picks left. We're currently looking at a build of 2-5-7-2, which isn't that bad. 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends. I'm usually probably doing something that looks like that. Maybe messing around with tight end if I'm not that confident in my guys. But I think if we're gonna put the draft capital on Kyle Pitts, we should probably just ride with that.
Yeah.
And I don't think Hunter Henry's that bad. And unless you really just don't feel good about this quarterback room, then maybe we go with another wide receiver or with another quarterback. But otherwise, I'm probably ready to go wide receiver and make this a 2-5-9-2, unless you think we shouldn't be.
Oh, man. You know what? We already have a couple other players. Like, I feel like we almost have to go Daniel Jones. And I know it's like a total leap of... Is he gone?
Yeah, I put him in the queue earlier. He's gone. I know.
All right.
He went early. He went early.
I'm good with it unless you want to go Carr. I mean, I don't think we have any of those pieces, but
Carr we could go with. I'm just trying to see if there was anybody we could put him with, which again, I mean, you don't have to. At this point in time, we would be adding Carr, but we could go with Carr and Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
Which doesn't actually sound horrible. I mean, it could be horrible because he might not play at all, but who's their slot guy? I know they brought on Willie Snead. I don't really care if they brought on Willie Snead. I don't know why they brought on Willie Snead. I think that John Brown is still going to be outside. I think Henry Ruggs is going to be on the outside. Brian Edwards is a giant question mark. Let me see what the other quarterbacks are. The other thing we could do if we wanted to go quarterback, which I've done this a couple times, we already lost Jacoby Myers, but we could go Mac Jones. I've done a couple Mac Jones recently because I don't see Cam starting, or we could go Cam if we really wanted to. We could even go Cam Newton.
Man, I don't know if they hang with Cam the whole time. Like Mac Jones is the most ready-made guy.
So
I'll let you talk me into that one if that's what you want to do.
I don't want to talk you into Cam. I'd rather talk you into Mac Jones, and if we want to go like something like unique here, wide receiver wise, something like almost borderline wild, like a Kendrick Bourne who they just signed, and then Mac Jones to bring it back, and then we have a 3-headed New England stack that could be unique. I don't even like Kendrick Bourne. Let's go Mac Jones and Hunter Henry, and then we can talk out this last pick. If you're good with that.
That's great. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's do that. All right. So that's our pick 17. I like I said, I'm not wild about Kendrick Bourne. I'm going to put him in here just so like a space holder. So if some reason we timed out, we're probably going to get him. But I think we need a wide receiver here. If you wanted to talk about someone who could possibly just be like that prototypical best ball guy where you're like, oh yeah, like good, he got a 50-yard pass today. Jalen Guyton is one of those guys who I think is rather interesting. There's a couple guys who could be maybe a little bit more target hogs if things break the right way, like Quintez Cephas. Not a lot of people are talking about him, but he saw a lot of targets last season early on. Tim Patrick is an interesting player, even though I think he's probably going to be a little bit pushed down the depth chart, unlike last season where he sort of arose out of, I think, necessity when KJ Hamler missed some games or whatever. But is there any wide receiver who you'd be just taking a flyer on? We don't need to put Mac Jones with anybody. I'm not that worried about it.
No, I like Cephas too. I think we could definitely do that. I like Van Jefferson until Tutu came to town, and that was a little crazy. I've never been a big Bourne guy though. Like I'd rather roll with Cephas and see what that connection looks like with Goff.
Tell me this, because you just mentioned Tutu, and he's still on the board, and we've already gone one wide receiver who's getting pretty criticized this offseason with Kadarius Toney. Obviously, Tutu Atwell, who is the size that I was as a 10-year-old, he is still on the board. He's criticized for that size. If you're worried about Van Jefferson because of Tutu Atwell, is Tutu Atwell someone you want, or are we just no?
Nah.
Okay.
I mean, there's too many options there. Like Cephas could legit be the number one guy in Detroit.
Yeah.
And so I think that they have a nice 1 through 17 schedule, and that would be a nice surprise, and somebody that at the very end here to be around 18 guy, like he's worth a shot for sure, just on talent alone.
Yeah. All right, cool. We're going to do it. Someone just drafted Mo Alley Cox. It's a guy who sniped Damian Harris from us. I guess he's never heard of Kylan Granson. So enjoy Mo Alley Cox. He's a 0. No, maybe he's not. We got Quintez Cephas, though. I do like that last pick. He's surprised. If I'm not mistaken, Cephas had like 10 targets in week 1, and everyone was just like flocking to the waiver wire to add this guy who was all of a sudden this target hog in the making in Detroit. And obviously he didn't do a whole lot, but that's a wide receiver core that is, relatively unimpressive. They didn't even add a wide receiver in the draft, I believe, until it was Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I don't know if you recall which round he went in, but it was not a top 3 round, I don't believe. So let me actually pull it up here real quick. I'll let you know. But yeah, they added nobody. So if you want to talk about wide receivers who could potentially walking into a room, he was drafted in the 4th round.
Yeah,
so if you want to talk about wide receivers who could be walking into a room where targets could just be up for grabs and may the best man win, Quintez Cephas could very well end up being that guy who sees that. He's got a year under his belt. He's not a rookie. And Tyrell Williams isn't going to hog targets. TJ Hockenson is obviously a threat, but that was going to be the case no matter what. Someone has to be that wide receiver in Detroit getting the targets. And I could very well see a case where Quintez Cephas gets it. And as an 18th round pick, we aren't asking the world of him. He needs to get a couple of decent games. One or 2 wide receiver 1 weeks probably just about does it for you. Even top 24 weeks is probably.
I mean, he's our 8th guy, right? So that's. I mean, I love that upside. I think he'll give us a few games for sure.
Yeah, I think so. So real quick, the draft just ended. We're going to go over this team real quick, and we'll offer any final words, and then we'll get ourselves out of here. So we went ahead and went with a 3 quarterback, 5 running back, 8 wide receiver, 2 tight end build. Again, this is an Underdog Mania Best Ball 2 draft. For our quarterbacks, we went Josh Allen. We can call him Kyler Murray. That's what we're supposed to do. It's Josh Allen. And then we went Ryan Fitzpatrick and Mac Jones as a quarterback 3, kind of, I think, a way of kind of covering ourselves just in the event that, Ryan Fitzpatrick somehow plays his way out of a job or whatever the case may be. You never know. He tends to make us all very happy until all of a sudden the team he's on messes with the fantasy owners and no longer starts him. So we got Mac Jones as our QB3 in the 17th round. Running backs, we came out of the gate running. We went Jonathan Taylor and Najee Harris to open the draft. Came back with Michael Carter after a devastating loss of Damian Harris. David Johnson, who Steven made a really good case for, just, receiving upside, still decent runner. I think he had a relatively healthy season last year. I don't hate that pick. And people are sleeping on Texans. So, what better time to take somebody than when everyone else is down on him? Maybe it goes your way. And then Darrington Evans, the last pick. We discussed him at the opening of the show. Possible league winner if Derrick Henry goes down, possibly even a 3rd down role where you can see some PPR weeks where he just puts something on the board for you and somehow works his way into your lineup. Wide receivers, we went Terry McLaurin, Kenny Galladay, Jerry Jeudy, Marquise Brown, Gabriel Davis, who went ahead and stacked with Josh Allen, Kadarius Toney, and Kenny Galladay, both on the same team. That's a little stack without the quarterback. Dammy Brown, McLaurin, Fitzpatrick, nice 3-way stack for Washington. Quintez Cephas, who's going to lead the Lions in targets next season. And then Kyle Pitts and Hunter Henry at tight end to round it out. Overall, what are we thinking about this team? Do we think we have enough to get it? Are we beating the other 2 teams I've drafted? My previous guest. Were you the best guest I've had on so far?
I think so. I honestly think so. Like we have the team that'll get us to week 14 and get us into that next round, and then we got the players to get us for the 15 to 17. So I think that we got the right mix. I mean, it looks like a weird like I would never make this team either, but I think like this is a great team between you and I. Like, it came out like we baked that cake. This is a good looking cake right here, man. This is a $1 million winner.
Yeah, I mean, I like Colorado so much. I just, I'm gonna win some money here. I'm gonna get another flight. I'm gonna fly out and personally deliver you the money, Steven, when we get it. You let me know how you like your bills. If you like them in 1s or 5s, and I'll make it happen. But we'll get out there. But do you have any final words before I go ahead and shut this thing down for the evening?
No, man, this has been a blast. Thanks for for meeting you and being a guest. It's been a long time coming, and I had a great time. This was awesome.
Absolutely. You were one of my first guests I wanted to have on this show when we did it. And then when I was asked to collaborate with Underdog, I knew that there was not a better person to have on and yourself. We've done enough chatting on the Twitter streets in regards to Underdog fantasy and best ball drafts. I was like, I got to get Steven on here. He's the guy to have. So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Roster Locked, a best ball show live on RotoViz Radio, RotoViz YouTube. You can find it on the YouTube channel after this live broadcast shuts down. We are going to go ahead and put this Best Ball Mania 2 baby to bed on Underdog Fantasy. Again, if you haven't done it before, you can sign up for Underdog using the link in the show sheet. In the show description. Promo code Krugs will get you a $25 bonus upon deposit. You have to deposit at least $10. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back on next week. It'll be a Friday show due to some scheduling conflicts with my guests. So looking forward to kicking off the weekend in style. And we will see you all then. So thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.